small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Well, that must be why it feels like a holiday weekend. You got the Super Bowl coming up. There was just this feeling I had as the weekend was approaching. It just felt like a holiday, and I couldn't put my finger on it. But as we were getting ready for this week's show and running down the stack of news, obviously the Super Bowl, talk of a Star Wars preview of some sort or previews is still on top of everyone's mind and showing up on news stories. And so, but we'll get into all of that as to what the likelihood of this happening. I said a couple weeks ago, well, the smart money is that this is going to happen during the Super Bowl. And then last week we had a story that was pointing to not one, not two, but 3 mini previews. Why is everything mini now, all of a sudden? Like they got this animated series on Star Wars, and it's some really cool stuff, but it's like, 3.5 seconds long. And now, of course, with you're not going to get a trailer for Episode 9. You're going to get 3 little mini previews. Or will you? I don't know. We'll talk about it here. Rebel Force Radio, this week's show, February 1st, 2019. Yes, in the United States, it is like a holiday. And I think someone that can back me up on that claim is a man who's also surviving the Arctic freeze here in the Midwest. My good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yes, polar vortex, but we're plowing ahead and we're talking about Star Wars. It doesn't matter what the weather is outside. We're keeping it nice and hot here with Star Wars conversation. And nothing is mini, nothing is bite-sized when it comes to us here at RFR. You could always expect very long-winded Star Wars conversations, opinions, and a lot of chuckles along the way. So that's what we're hearing, though, is that there could be maybe some footage shown during the Super Bowl?
Yeah, well, last week we were talking about a story that was pointing to 3 sort of little clips that would tease you as a fan and lead you into the big trailer in April, Chicago celebration. But now I'm looking at headlines like this one here from... what is this? This is from Deadline. Is it? Yeah, Deadline.com, saying that Star Wars Episode 9 on the sidelines for the big game. Mm-hmm. But don't worry, you Fast and Furious fans, because the Hobbs and Shaw preview. What the hell is a Hobbs and Shaw? It's like a folk group from the 70s. Hobbs and Shaw. I can see them with their guitars, and one's got a banjo or something. No. That's gonna touch down. Well, this is a great.
Hobbs and Shaw was a newspaper cartoon that had like a wacky tiger in it. A kid.
Well, apparently it's a movie with Jason Statham and Dwayne Johnson, The Rock.
Oh, love those guys. Love those guys.
It's a spin-off of Fast and Furious, and so they're going to get that. But am I wrong that here in the States Super Bowl Sunday is a bit like a holiday in a weird way?
Well, of course, everyone throws parties and kids stay up late on Sunday. It's a school night, but that doesn't matter because it's the only thing keeping us warm is hanging around a bunch of booze and guacamole dip and watching football. And you're right. It's an American tradition and everything. But you know what else is traditional? Is a lot of people are making a bunch of noise about the fact that there's not a Star Wars trailer confirmed for Super Bowl Sunday.
Yep.
But I looked at the trailers or movie teases or what have you that were released by major motion picture studios to promote their films during Super Bowls from the past few years. Mm-hmm. And I can't find a film that has been released later than the summer movie season. It seems like the Super Bowl is when they throw their money down to promote summer movie releases. That's why we had a tease for Solo during Super Bowl last year. So there is no summer release this year. There's not going to be a tease during the Super Bowl for any movies coming out post summer movie season. And episode 9, of course, is coming out in December. So we'll probably start seeing the big promotional push, the big marketing push for episode 9 kick off its Star Wars Celebration Chicago. It makes all the sense in the world. The only time we've seen a film get any sort of preview treatment, any sort of marketing push prior to the summertime, if it's a December release, or prior to the springtime, I should say, was that first one, The Force Awakens.
Right.
Where they were just so anxious to unleash.
It was 13 months. It was about 13 months in advance.
Right. They were just so anxious to unleash material from the film on us that most of the stuff that they put in that first trailer didn't make it into the final cut of the film. That frustrates me as a Star Wars fan. Same thing happened with Rogue One. So I think they're looking for the film to get locked and loaded in the can and really settled on before they start putting out trailers or anything that might include material that won't make it into the final film. Because, twice bitten, 3 times shy at this point.
Right. Well, and I can back you up on that. Going back to this story on Deadline here, this is what is slated. You know what? Wait, we can't talk about all these movies without bringing on.
Yeah, I know. I was just thinking at myself. I sort of forgot.
We're talking movies here, and we've got my brother in the Force, your brother in the flesh, Billy Mack joining us in the studio. We can't talk about all this stuff. Bill, I don't know if you heard the conversation, but we were talking about the Super Bowl, and Jim was throwing out saying, hey, you know what? All this stuff is premature because there's no precedent for a trailer to drop for a film that's, any more than 6-7 months away from Super Bowl Sunday. And I was about to throw some facts down on that, which this year we've got, as I mentioned, this is the Hobbs and Shaw trailer. People are excited. That's going to be a summer release. It's late summer, but it's August 2nd. Yeah. Also, it looks like Captain Marvel is going to show up. That's March 8th. Avengers Endgame, that's an April release. Dumbo, which is at the end of March. Aladdin, that's in May. Toy Story 4, that's a June 21st release.
A lot of those movies have already had teasers, right?
Well, that's true.
Is that what you're saying?
That's right.
I mean, I've seen the Dumbo one. Captain Marvel's been out there. They've had several trailers by now.
Yeah, well, this is confirmed. I shouldn't say confirmed. This is speculation about the movie trailers that we will see during the big game. But you're right. These are all also films that we've seen some sort of, teaser or trailer or clip or something from. Even Toy Story 4 had a little teaser. You didn't get to see anything pertaining to the actual film, from what I can tell.
They got a Corvette Summer 2 on there anywhere? You see
hold on. Let me look here.
Because I heard something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Hamill's really dipping into the nostalgia bag here. Let's see. No, I'm afraid not. We do have a Shazam trailer.
The real Captain Marvel.
Well, yeah. But I've seen it. They've had trailers for that already.
Right, exactly.
These are all summer movies, you're saying.
Summer movies. Spring, summer movies, yeah. So, Jim, what you were saying is, don't get so ahead of yourself. Although, I will say that you also, I think, at one time had a belief that it was more likely we were going to get a Star Wars trailer during the Super Bowl than it was those rumors about some sort of Christmas drop.
Right. And I felt that way because I just believe that Star Wars as a brand needs some positive injection into the bloodstream right now. And releasing some sort of tantalizing footage for Episode 9 will maybe curb a lot of the discussion about Episode 8 that's been going on incessantly for the last 13 months. So I would like to start talking about Star Wars of the future as opposed to the Star Wars of the past, which has just been dominating.
Well, we've got a segment coming up on the show that is going to allow us to speculate, nerd out, talk about some of the big rumors that have shown up online in recent weeks about Episode 9. And so, we're going to of course, we'll give the spoiler alert as we get closer to that moment. But so this week's show is a lot about looking forward. But if you're really, really thinking that you're going to see some sort of Episode 9 preview this weekend, I would say that all signs point to no. Now, the only thing that could happen, because Lucasfilm and Disney knows there's all of this expectation, could we get a title release?
Well, judging by the release schedules of previous films, I think that's much more likely.
Mm-hmm.
That would be kind of earth-shattering, and especially if they can keep it quiet until it actually happens.
Yeah.
That would be great. Remember how amazing it was when Steve Sansweet announced the title for Episode 3 at San Diego Comic-Con, and it was Revenge of the Sith? He had a baseball jersey on. He opened up the jersey, and he had the logo there on his shirt. And it was just like this seismic charge that was felt throughout all of Star Wars fandom. And the T-shirts went on sale immediately. I love that kind of surprise. They could do that at Celebration. But and why wouldn't they at this point? Big deal if we don't know the title of Star Wars Episode 9 until April. Give it to us all at Star Wars Celebration Chicago.
Give us the trailer, give us the title, give us the T-shirt, the whole thing.
The T-shirt, yes.
Have they ever saved the title for the trailer? It seems like every time that has been revealed beforehand, right?
Yeah.
It would be cool to get it with the trailer, though. Just kind of.
Yeah, I agree.
It would add to the excitement of it, I think. If
yes.
As opposed to a tweet or something.
Yes. Yeah, right. Of course, that's what's going to happen.
Make it real
be
special.
Some sort of, right. We'll see the title treatment.
The title was revealed for Episode 8 via Instagram. Yeah, give us something. Yeah. Yeah, remember it was I think it was Ryan Johnson's Instagram, and he showed a picture of the opening crawl just at the beginning there, where it said The Last Jedi, and there it was. And that was it. Instagram. That's slumming, man. Yeah, put it on a big stage.
How was Episode 2 done? I seem to remember Ewan McGregor going like,
that's
the title.
Famous.
That's the title, really.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor
was that the reveal?
Was at a. Well, that was what it was. Was Ewan McGregor was at some sort of red carpet for some other movie,
right?
And it happened to be on the same day that I think I was like watching Entertainment Tonight or E! Online or something, and that happened to be the same day that they announced that Attack of the Clones was the name of Episode 2. He hadn't heard this. And they deliver the news to him, and he starts laughing.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
He goes, that's not... Yeah. I think he was like, that's not... It's like, it's bloody awful. It's bloody awful. And then he had to tap dance around it.
What a great way to...
Afterwards. I'm trying to dig up that audio right now.
We have the audio.
It must be here somewhere.
Is that the name of it?
It was like that. That's how my memory is playing.
Yeah.
And then he said, it's bloody awful.
Yeah, he just laughs.
Bloody awful.
And then, look, it at the time, I mean, it does. Actually, we've talked about it on the show many times, that when the first titles are, when you first hear the new titles of the films, they always take a while to get used to, because the other ones roll off the tongue so well, so quickly. Even Phantom Menace, I mean, that seemed like a mouthful. Like the Phantom Menace, like this is so not Star Warsy. Now it really feels Star Warsy. I mean, it's become, part of the whole mythos and everything. Attack of the Clones, sounded cheesy, but when you think about Bill, when you think about the history of Star Wars and what George Lucas was inspired by, these serials of the 40s and 50s, it makes total sense. Attack of the Clones. It sounds very serial-like.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, totally. It's got that pulpy vibe. I just think it would be really cool to be caught up in the excitement of the trailer, to have the title revealed that way so we can all just kind of have a natural reaction. I mean, there's something about revealing it online and stuff now where it just, the reactions are so immediate. You don't even have any time to process it. I think with the trailer, you still kind of get that opportunity to have your own reaction, at least for a couple minutes there,
Oh, for sure.
I'd like to see him do it that way. And I'm thinking of some other recent ones. Solo, I think, was Ron Howard basically with a title card online, right? Didn't he just say, here's
Ron
the title
Howard
of the movie?
That's right. I think I've got it right here. This is it. This is this goes back to 19. What do we got? A year on this? And this would have been 2002.
2002.
Yeah, 2002. So you got Ewan McGregor. Here he is. This is from CNN.
Phantom Menace? I don't know. All right.
Oh, wait. Well, that was awfully quick. Is that all there is to it?
What was that?
No, that was
Phantom Menace, I don't know.
That's the title. I just heard that. What is that?
Oh, here we go. So this is Ewan McGregor. He's walking the red carpet with Nicole Kidman. I don't know what movie this is.
Moulin Rouge, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Moulin Rouge.
That's right.
Soon to be a lavish Broadway musical. Moulin Rouge. So here we go. Ewan McGregor, and CNN corners him and asks him about the episode 2 title.
Attack of the Clones? That's the title. I just heard that. I just heard the new Star Wars film's called Attack of the Clones. No. There is.
Oh, they're laughing. Nicole Kidman's laughing.
Phantom Menace? I don't know. All right.
Is that better than Phantom Menace? I don't know.
All right. Well, it's not quite how I remembered it.
Yeah. But still, I mean, and then you got Nicole Kidman there. She's like, no, that's not it, is it?
Oh, no, he just said it was.
Right. I just heard
terrible.
He filmed the movie. He knew all about clones and clone armies and Kaminoans.
The what?
And he's acting like he's like plausible deniability, like he had nothing to do with this thing.
Maybe he's just trying to impress Nicole Kidman.
Right.
Clones? What? That's the first I've heard of it. Oh. No, I'm not into clones. I make movies that are much more sophisticated.
It's not my bag, baby.
It's not my bag, baby. It's a clone, man.
I make movies where we cover songs like Lady Marmalade.
One autographed copy of your book, Attack of the Clones by Ewan McGregor, and it is my bag, baby. It's not mine, really. Man.
According to the Radio Times, it says, on hearing Attack of the Clones, the Obi-Wan Kenobi actor bursts into laughter and declares to Nicole Kidman, I've just found out the new Star Wars film's called Attack of the Clones. Is that better than Phantom Menace? I don't know. And then it says, meow. The Radio Times said, meow. Wow.
Behave.
Oh, wow. Oh, so that was a nice blast from the past.
I seem to remember him saying, no, that's not it. That's bloody awful. Why do I my memory makes it much worse.
I think you might be remembering Paul Bateman's reaction, actually. That's bloody awful. Okay, well, so it's sounding like no trailer, possibly a title reveal. Who knows? Or, as we've talked about here, maybe they'll just save it all for Star Wars Celebration.
Save it.
We'll all leave the panel with the little 11 by 17 poster.
Yeah, like we're getting into that panel.
Oh, no.
Sleep out overnight in downtown Chicago? No way, I'm not doing that.
When I say the panel, I mean, our suite
Oh, when we're
overlooking
watching
downtown Chicago, watching it on StarWars.com.
Well, hopefully. I hope that they have a sponsor who can cough up the bucks to make that happen. It seems like they need that. They need the sponsorship.
That's
money,
right.
So. And so do we, quite no. I'm just kidding.
We'll be covering it, and the fact is, I think that they have had webcasting of the Star Wars Celebration for, I don't know, 3 or 4 celebrations now. So at least the ones in the States. That is one thing that they didn't have it for Celebration Europe 2. They didn't have it for Celebration Japan, but that predates when they really started. They started with one of the big telecoms, like it was Singular Wireless was, I think, one of the first sponsors, and then it was Sprint, and I think AT&T's been in there. Verizon, yeah, there you go.
They've all coughed up the bucks. So
well, it's the bandwidth, I mean, the bandwidth expenses is probably crazy, but that was one of the most fun parts of the last celebration was just hanging out in the luxurious suite, eating ridiculously overpriced food with Billy Mack and you and me, and just taking our whole sweet time with everything.
Yeah,
look, if you're young and you've got the time, the patience, and the
stamina,
the stamina to wait in line for 18 hours to see a panel, more power to you. I'm going to sleep in. I will say, though, the optics of the people sleeping around the convention center was not good. And, stepping over your fellow fan, as you're on the way, and it's like, what are you waiting in line for? Oh, this panel. It's like, a day and a half away was ridiculous. Jim, do you think there will be that kind of thing going on at McCormick Place, or do you think there'll be a little bit more, dignity this time around for the Star Wars fans?
I understand why they want to do it with the wristbands and everything, because if you do a lottery system and predetermine who's going to get into what panels, then you deal with the secondary market and people scalping those tickets, or whatever they determine to give you access into these events. Maybe if they scan your badge or something like that, it'd be easier to cut down on that kind of thing. So you don't have people just going to StubHub and selling panel tickets.
Well, you know what? In the day and age now of digital ticketing, and where your cell phone is your ticket to theater, to sporting events, all kinds of things, I would think that they would have ways to sort of cut down on that sort of thing. You make them non-transferable, and
use the thumbprint technology,
sure,
or something like that, and that would destroy the secondary market.
Exactly. I think there are ways to do it, and what I was hoping for is that when you would buy your ticket, that you could also buy other tickets, or sort of kind of curate your own experience and get the tickets for the things that you wanted to see. Now, that also assumes that they're choosing venues that have a reasonable capacity for the demand. Obviously, not everybody can go, but a reasonable capacity is what we ask. And you can sort of, like I say, curate your own experience, and so there's no waiting in line. Either you have a ticket for this panel or you don't, based on when you bought your tickets for the event. I think there are ways, and we've talked about it on the show many times, there are ways to do this differently. But there seems to be an unwillingness to, and I think it's because they like the spectacle. They like the local media coming down and looking at all the, the people sleeping out in their cots and their tents and their chairs, because it creates this frenzy, or the sense that there's this frenzy. But I think that it's like, good Lord, there's something to say for dignity, and
then when you have people like real big shots, Star Wars big shots, going on stage saying, "Oh, look at you! You guys slept out here all night. You're so amazing. You're the greatest fans of all the fans."
Yeah, right.
Thank you, and thank you for those who slept out last night.
it contributes to that frenzy. It's almost like they're cultivating that kind of.
Oh my God, we got to stay overnight because maybe J.J. Abrams will give us a piece of pizza.
Well, hey, how cool is that? You say, hey, JJ, wait, you got no pepperoni in there? What are you giving me this? Is it plain cheese?
Yeah.
Do you got any of the Parmesan and the little the red pepper flakes? Where are those, JJ?
Brian Johnson shows up giving out pizzas. We should have known then.
Brian, you got any of that crazy bread over there with you? You got just the pizza? That's all you got? Where's the beer? Who's got the kegs of beer? Who's bringing that?
Respect the fans. That's what we're asking for.
And
but
we
hey,
want
you know
beer.
what?
We want respect and beer while we're waiting in line. God. Hey, listen, I do have to throw out this little bit of information, though. I learned this from Reed, somebody at Reed who's in the know. And a lot of people are getting excited because the big panels are going to be held in the Wintrust Business Arena, which is adjacent to McCormick Place. And it's got a capacity of 10,000 people. Like Bob Dylan plays there. They have some big-time acts that show up there. It's a new place, too.
Yeah, I've never heard. Have you been in that place?
No, I haven't been there. But it's huge, and it's right there in the South Loop. And that's where they're going to be having the main panels. That's the main stage. I've been told they are using half the capacity of the arena. So there'll be some sort of curtain or something up where they'll be utilizing half of the arena.
Well, why would they do that? Why would they cut their capacity in half? Is it because they're concerned about how it looks? They want to make sure it looks full. Mm-hmm. So you cut it in half. That's probably why.
That goes on a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe.
And probably move a stage. I'm picturing like a stage in the center of the main floor. And curtain cutting off half of the arena behind it, so people.
That's
so
the
there's not
backstage
seating
area.
behind. Yeah,
and that's commonplace. I think also expense comes into play quite a bit.
I don't know, man. I got to tell you, if I'm getting shut out of an event,
after paying $250 something for the 5-day
amen.
pass.
And plus, the travel and everything. I'm getting shut out of an event, and I know that they've purposely cut off half the capacity. I'm not going to be happy. I'm not going to be happy.
This is the reality of the situation, though.
Yeah.
Because the guy who told me this, I have no reason to believe that he'd be BS.
Oh, I'm sure you're right. They would rather. Here's the thing. They would rather it look absolutely jam-packed for the cameras and squeeze 5,000 people in there. Than make another maybe 2,000, 3,000 people happy. That's what it comes down to.
And keeping costs down and all that stuff. So
they rented the place out. What are the costs?
The bottom line gets bigger. Well, I mean, obviously, if you're going to open up more of the arena, you're going to need a larger staff to maintain the crowd in the arena. Especially nowadays, extra security, extra ushers.
Yeah, you got to
open up more bathrooms. You have to open up more concession stands. You have to open up more entrances. So that creates a security situation.
Well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I hope maybe if they see on day one what the demand is. I also feel like they walk into this event not knowing what to expect every time. It
seems like it. Yeah, right. It really does seem like
it's like, haven't you guys done
first
this
time
before?
around the block for these guys? Yeah,
we don't know. We didn't think anyone was going to show up to this thing.
I mean, all you have to look at how the store, the celebration stores have been handled to realize that there seems to be no concept of demand. Like, here, we got the little booth. You can buy a ticket right there. There's like two guys working it, and that just astounds me every time. I mean, I remember the last one we were at. I was just standing there looking at it, like trying to figure out, like, what did they have in mind with this again? I'm looking at these lines. And, of course.
Well, you wait
needless to say,
8 hours.
I bailed.
You wait like 8 hours to get into
I can't do that.
The gift
that's
shop.
Crazy. Yeah, to buy some merchandise. No way.
Can you imagine? And how about
waiting that time and getting up there and to be told everything's sold out? That's the other thing that's happening.
Well, my favorite thing is the running of the bulls in the dealer room for the exclusives that go on sale at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. or whatever. I mean, if you don't care, and I got to be honest, I mean, I'm a collector, and there are certain things I'm very passionate about. But, it's like, you know what? I'll buy it on eBay later. Really. I mean, because I'm not putting myself through that stress. And if you commit to not putting yourself through that stress, you can actually enjoy watching other people live through the stress.
Yeah.
You can. It's
Schadenfreude. Yeah,
exactly.
Right. I did that once or twice in Anaheim in 2015. I tried to get the Lego thing, and I didn't know what it was going to be like. I know that those are always in demand, but I went to the convention very early one day, like 6 a.m. The queue line was already just filled, but I thought I had a fairly good spot, and they opened the doors. And everyone went hustling in there, and I went straight to the Lego booth, and it was already a line that was a mile long. How did that happen?
Possible?
Exactly. I'm like, you know what? This is just one big fix.
It's all a scam.
It's all a scam. But I didn't have any expectations, so I was like, okay, well, whatever. I went up. You know what I did? I went up to the museum, or what do they call it? The exhibit with the film props and stuff, and nobody was there.
Yeah, museum replicas, guys. Yeah.
Nobody was there, and it had costumes for The Force Awakens that I hadn't seen. I had not seen the exhibit. Yes, and that was the first time I saw Kylo Ren was at that exhibit. I'd never seen what he was supposed to look like. So
that's where we found out that BB-8 was a dude.
That's what the puppeteers were there.
Yeah.
And then
I was setting him up.
I went through that display with Filoni also, which was kind of enlightening because he knew more than he would be allowed to say at that time. So I would say things, and I'd like, oh, BB-8's in the back of that X-Wing, and he'd look at me and go, So I knew, the evil laugh, the diabolical,
Yeah, wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to know what that guy is?
It was just like, your ignorance is so cute to me right now. That's what it was.
But the lesson of that story, though, is keep your options open, folks. When you go into these, don't have your heart set on something. If you go there and encounter a line that looks like it's going to be an 8-hour wait, just try to find something else to do, because there's always multiple things going on at once. That exhibit, I'm telling you, there was nobody in there. I spent a good 40 minutes in there looking around, thoroughly enjoyed it. I walked by it several hours later, and that was just a mob scene that looked like people were about ready to set up tent outside of that too. So, always have at least 2 or 3 choices of what you want to do going at any given time.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when it comes to those exclusives from the big licensees, set reasonable expectations. I mean, you got to be willing to get up at the crack of dawn or stay up all night the night before in some cases, and it's like, what's it really worth to you? And you know what? If you're that passionate about it and you're like, but that's what I live for, man. I love doing that, and I hang out in the lines, we have a good time. Go for it. I was young once, go for it. But nothing's worth that to me. Like I said, I'll pay scalper prices on eBay later. I'll roll over in bed and buy it on my phone. But no, I mean, there's so much to do and so much to look forward to with this show. I can't believe that it's going to be in Chicago, and it's a couple of months away. I mean,
you're telling me.
Yeah,
you're telling me, because a lot of people are asking about a Rebel Force Radio live podcast, and there are things in the works behind the scenes. They're even behind the scenes for me, so I can't.
I was going to say I don't even know what's going on.
I don't know. I mean, but we have top people working on this, and hopefully we'll be able to tell you about it soon. We'll be telling the Rebel Force Radio Patreon community about it first and foremost, though, and they're going to get the first shot at tickets. Mm-hmm. Looking at some places in downtown Chicago, close to McCormick Place. That's a big thing for me. I want it to be close to McCormick Place. And a lot of people don't realize, Chicago, they're coming to the city. It's a huge city. I mean, it's really expansive. It's gigantic. So I just want to make sure that we're keeping everything nice and tight and close to the actual convention center itself so people can get to it with ease. But more details to come. I just want to, put it at a time and a place where it's the most accessible to the most amount of people. And we can have the biggest bash of all time. Live podcast event. And Billy Mack will be there.
I will be there, man.
Yes.
Yeah. Damn right.
And, of course, we'll be surrounded by loyal Rebel Force Radio listeners. And speaking of loyal Rebel Force Radio listeners, we've got a special guest who's going to be joining us here in just a moment. On the hotline here, we've got Michael Jasmine. Michael has something he wanted to do this week for us here. What's going on? What brings you here to Rebel Force Radio land?
A couple years ago, there's a couple cons in Michigan. One of the big ones that we have in northern Michigan is the Traverse City Comic-Con. Mm-hmm. And at that event, there's a vendor that makes a specific item. She actually makes different, they're called Ruppets, and she makes custom puppets. She makes Star Trek characters, Star Wars characters. Basically, if you can come up with something, she'll make it. She had made a Chewbacca puppet, which I took notice of and was like, well, that's pretty neat. So last spring, I'm in my bathroom painting the ceiling, just doing some work on the house. We were getting ready for a graduation party, just trying to make things look nicer. And I'm hearing Billy Mack. He's doing readings out of a book. And he's doing, the Lando, the voice. And I'm like, that is just so remarkable how well he does that. And and it got me thinking. And I'm like, you know what? He probably needs is just, a little bit of inspiration. Maybe we could find something. And if you could pull it out now.
Oh, my God. What is this?
He's opening the box now. He's
okay.
Let's see him.
Well, wait a minute. Let me hold on. Let me get my hand up.
Ladies and gentlemen.
God.
Let me get my hand up in there.
Well, yeah.
Because it's a puppet Lando.
It is.
Oh, my
Lando.
God.
Wow.
Look at that.
This is amazing. Let's see. I don't know how to do the. Wow, this is like full on Muppet quality here.
Oh, I heard his voice get a little deeper.
How you doing? How you doing, Chewbacca? Wait a minute. I'm not. Obviously, I have no puppet experience here, but how you doing, Chewbacca? Are you still hanging around with this loser?
All right.
Hello. What have we here? I'm Lando Calrissian. I'm the administrator of this facility. This is great, man. Well, thank you. I don't know if this is. Wasn't there a character on South Park, a teacher that walked around with a puppet all the time? This may be
Mr.
where
Garrison.
I'm headed with this. Yeah, Mr. Garrison or whatever.
Yeah, he had Mr. Hat.
This could go into some very disturbing territory.
All right. Well, we need to have Puppet Lando perform for us. So I thought it would be great if we could have him actually recite some Lando Calrissian Billy D. Williams tweets. These are actual tweets.
You want me to do it with the puppet?
Yes. These are actual tweets from Billy D. Williams' Twitter account.
Okay.
His official
I don't know how
Twitter
good I'm
account.
going to do with the...
At, quit making excuses already, at realbdw.com.
Yeah.
I'm shooting video of this at the same time.
Oh man.
Okay.
Jimmy's multitasking.
All right, let's get some good lights on him. All right, these are actual tweets from Billy D. Williams' Twitter account. starting with one from this week to warn all of the Billy D. Williams fans out there that we're dealing with a polar vortex that has swept across the Midwest. And Billy D. Williams cares about you.
Yeah, well, you don't want to mess around with this polar vortex. Hey, baby. It's cold. It's really cold outside. I'm thinking of everyone across the country battling below zero temperatures today. Stay safe and warm. And if you have to go outside, don't forget your cape. And I'm just gonna go off script right here and tell you that you need to dress in layers. And I don't mean Princess Leia. Here's another one of my tweets. It's nothing like a kick-ass workout with @Gunner to beat the rainy day blues.
Who's Gunner's his trainer?
Yeah, you know Gunner.
Oh yeah, well,
he's a good friend of mine, Jason. Hey.
Sorry, Billy.
Hey, Ed Hamill himself. Remember the 80s? Good times and great memories.
Real tweets, once again, ladies and gentlemen. These are real tweets.
That's a shout out to Luke Skywalker. It is so fulfilling to express myself when painting. The struggles and the joys, the pain of the people. Something tangible to reflect upon.
What the hell is he painting?
Well, I do Lando stuff and regurgitate my feelings. What's my next tweet here? Fond memories, acting alongside Sophia Loren in the 1986 movie Courage. I'm sure you all saw Courage. It was a big hit in 1986. I recall being in awe of Sophia's beauty, elegance, and talent.
What else?
At Lady Gaga. Yeah, we're going to shoot the bull a little bit. Congratulations on your nominations. What a performance. Your talents are limitless. And what else there? What else you got there, Billy Mack?
Random. That's a random tweet there.
Oh, she's absolutely beautiful.
Lady Gaga, just out of nowhere.
Well, we go way back. She's a musician. No, I'm serious, Jason. We're pretty tight, me and Lady Gaga. Thank you to my fans for supporting my great and wild ride called life.
You gotta see it with the puppet. I mean, this is amazing. He's got the puppet going.
The puppet is very inspirational. My love is here to stay. May the Force awaken in all of us in 2019. And stay warm, with that polar. And if you are driving, the polar vortex, Now, we don't get that kind of weather on Cloud City. But... And I didn't go to the ice planet in Empire. But I did talk to Han and Chewie. They told me you don't mess around with that type of cold. I know Chewie had a problem with one of his toes looking a little off color there. We had to get him into the medical facilities. You know that guy with the ice cream thing on on Cloud City. He takes care of the frostbite.
Like a Bacta tank, but just for the feet.
It's
like a little
medical
whirlpool bath of Bacta tank for the toes, Wookiee toes.
Yeah, that's right. You're a smart guy, Jason.
Puppet
Lando.
May the force be with us all.
Wow,
Puppet
that's
Lando.
incredible. Puppet Lando making his debut here on Rebel Force Radio.
Now, since oh boy, does this mean I don't have to wear a mustache again, or I do? Because with the puppet and a mustache,
what you need to do is work.
If I start dressing like the puppet,
you need to work on your ventriloquism skills, though. You guys got to take this on the road. I see a meaningful future for you two.
I feel like what was that guy?
Vegas.
Who was that guy? Remember Tyler and Lester or whatever? Remember that guy? He used to be on Hollywood Squares and stuff.
Was he? What was he on? Like Solid Gold or something? Tyler and Lester.
And Lester.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, you have brought us, Michael. You have brought us years of laughs and entertainment to come. This is really
Michael. Thank you.
Special.
This is the best gift I've gotten in I don't know when.
This is an original, and I can't wait for everybody listening to be able to check out the video and the photos. We'll have those posted at rebelforceradio.com because this is something you really got to see. The imitation is just fabulous, but as Jimmy said, I can only imagine what it looks like with the puppet.
Oh my God! I'm preparing the video right now. I can't even wait. This is the greatest. What a gift! I told Chris, our graphic arts design guy, and I showed him a picture of the puppet, and I have to read Chris's response when he saw the puppet because it's just so hilarious and very dead on. Chris says, that thing is going to be to Jason like car keys are to babies. Yes.
All right. Point taken.
Yes. If Triumph the Insult Dog could get a lot of mileage, I think Puppet Lando is going to take us places. This show is going places, kid.
Wow. And we have Michael to thank. Michael, that's awesome for thinking about us.
Very thoughtful. Thank you.
Yeah, I've been listening for years and years. Appreciate everything, and just wanted to send a little something along. So,
well, that's a big something. That's a big something, and thank you for thinking of us and thinking of the show and Billy Mack. I mean, wow. Bill, how are you going to display that in your collection?
I don't know. I mean, that's exactly what I'm thinking. It's a little, when I don't have my hand in it, his mouth is in the open position. So I'm trying to think of how I can secure that.
It's just getting worse.
I'll get a stand.
It's getting worse all the time. Well, Michael, I hope that this lived up to your expectations, and we'll make sure you see the video of all of this. But
okay.
And don't forget that Billy Mack and Puppet Lando will be performing nightly at Star Wars Celebration at 9:30 each evening inside the Hoth Ice Lounge,
which is also known as the parking garage at McCormick Place. He'll be there right next to the pedway. Tips will be accepted.
The question, Bill, is: are you going to get? All great puppet artists, they have those nice trunks to put it in. You can have that kind of nice trunk with maybe the name engraved, and you carry it around. It's like a nice satin pillow inside for him.
God. Yeah, and do that thing where you can kind of throw your voice and go, let me out, let me out. Hey, look, everybody, it's Puppet Lando. Get him in his own seat on the airplane.
You could
right.
He could be in carbonite, and he could be in there going, what's that? You got the little carbonite.
I think he's in perfect hibernation.
Well, the real test is going to be if you wake up tomorrow morning and he's still in the same place as you put him the night before.
Yeah, right.
Right? You don't want to wake up in the middle of the night and hear scampering going on and a shadow of Puppet Lando across the room.
Looking for me?
I'd like to play.
Magic situation, yeah.
Hello, what have we here?
Oh, man. All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much. What a pleasure. What a treat. Thank you for being here. And it's the gift that's going to keep on giving for a long time.
He will get a place of honor, believe me. Quite unexpected. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You guys
All
have
right.
a good night.
All right, you too. Thanks
man.
so much.
Yep, thank you.
Rebel Force Radio.
Wow. Unbelievable. So what do you think?
What a great gift.
What do you think now? This is a one of a kind here. Puppet Lando is actually here with us, and there's so much we can do with Puppet Lando now. We could give Puppet Lando his own YouTube show. I mean, this could.
I just want a Hollywood Square. That's all I want. Oh, that show's not on anymore.
Could we get Puppet Lando on Hollywood Square? I think Snoop Dogg is hosted Joker's Wild these days, and with what that guy consumes, you could probably throw a puppet in front of his face. He wouldn't know the difference.
Hi, Jason. Hi, Jimmy. It's Bob. Listen, you wanted it. The fans demanded it. I give you the Lobot movie coming in 2020. I think Padme Amidala is a Sith Lord because her number 2 decoys always get whacked, and she has decoys or ladies in waiting even after she's queen, which is strange. That's something to look into story-wise. I'm going to put an automatronic Palpatine in the Hall of Presidents and wire the seats to give a slight shock. It should be fun. Someone leaked plans to the new park's offerings, so I've been going around with a group of Death Squad troops to track them down. What do you mean she lost the will to live? What about the twins? Take care, gents.
Boy, I tell you what, this guy just parachutes in once in a while and lays some bombshells on us. Listen, we got to unpack all this. Bob Iger talking about we've got a Lobot movie coming in 2020. Also, a Padme movie where she becomes a Sith Lord. Did he call her Padme Amidala? Bob's not really steeped in the lore, as we say.
I think we should do a film commentary track with Mr. Iger, Puppet Lando.
And then like Mystery Science Theater. And you and me. Right. We had Palpatine showing up in the Hall of Presidents? And gives you a little shock when you get too close.
I mean, it's just really like a flow of consciousness that's just Mr. Iger is throwing at us.
It's incredible. He's really just throwing it all against
rapid fire ideas.
He is throwing it all against the wall, as so to speak, to see what sticks. And that's a hell of a way to create Star Wars.
That's brilliant.
But you know what? We can't get it all right, just like Bob Iger. There are times when we screw up, and we have a correction this week here on the show. 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Star Wars Hotel. Now, this is a big part of the Galaxy's Edge experience. There's going to be this hotel. Bill, have you heard about this hotel?
Yeah.
Have we had you on the show? So you check into this hotel, and as long as you're there, no matter what you're doing, you could be going to the bathroom, you could be eating in one of the restaurants, wherever you are, you're in the Star Wars universe. The staff, they never break character. There's no escape. There's no escape. So this hotel, we had said that it was going to be in California. It's actually not. It's going to be in Disney Hollywood Studios in Orlando. So sorry about if those of you that maybe got excited about it or whatever. That was a mistake. It's not going to be in Anaheim. It's going to be in Orlando.
No, we've literally had people reach out to us saying,
"Really?
Hey, making travel arrangements. Just want to confirm with you."
Oh God! Yeah. Really?
So
really?
So we're on for Anaheim. I was like,
"Oh God,
swank!"
I think I remember what might have thrown me off.
What's that?
Is the fact that actually the amount of land that they have in Anaheim is larger than the plot of land that they have for Star Wars land in Florida. So the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge will be larger in Anaheim than it is in Orlando. However, the hotel will be adjacent to Galaxy's Edge in Hollywood Studios in Orlando. So they're getting the hotel, but the footprint of the Galaxy's Edge will be larger at the Anaheim park. So, hence the confusion, right?
We'll have to do them both.
Yes.
And we'll have to do the hotel. And Bill, you're in on that one, right?
Sure. Yeah.
We'll do it all. The thing with the hotel, though, I almost want to, for the price that they're going to be charging for 2 nights there, I want to make sure all the bugs are out of the system. I might want to sit back and wait for some reviews on that before I actually go ahead.
Weren't you kind of freaked out about this whole immersive idea that it was just a little too much?
Well, after a while, I might want to check out and, just be me. And just, let my freak flag fly a little bit.
Wait, how come you can't be you in the Star Wars world?
Well, because they assign you a character when you check into this thing.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, piggybacking off of the Lobot movie, I want a clean shave and a headset. I want that issued stat when I get in that place.
Headset implant.
Some things are a little too real.
Yeah.
You got to kill stormtroopers in there? I mean, is it like Westworld?
Oh, wow. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, how accurate is this place going to be?
You're going to get some ice.
Yeah.
You're like in your boxer shorts at 3 a.m. and flip-flops. You're going to get some ice out of the machine.
I want to recreate that scene in A New Hope with Han running down the Death Star corridor.
I don't.
And you turn at the ice machine, and there they are. Just the whole squadron is.
So there you are in your flip flops and boxer shorts, approaching the ice machine. Next thing you know, you're in the Kylo Ren torture chamber. Your bladder's half full.
I have seen the ice machine. I have tasted the cold ice.
You've seen it too.
And then he puts the bucket of ice down your pants, and you're like Poe Dameron. Fully immersive experience.
I mean, there is a moment where, like, if you are going to the bathroom or you're going to the ice machine or something, and all of a sudden you find yourself cuffed by a couple of overindulgent actors, cast members there at the hotel, and you just want to get some sleep, it could be a problem. But anyway, well, you know what? Those are called champagne problems. I'll take them. We'll figure it out.
That Han Solo torture chair from Besman. Oh, there it is. Where's Jason? He went to go get ice out of the machine like 2 hours ago.
They didn't even ask me any questions.
Oh.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert.
All right, dropping the spoiler alert because the speculation is about to begin, and we're going to catch up on some Episode 9 rumors. We might not be getting that trailer. We might not be getting a title, but we certainly can talk about all of the guesswork that's going on here throughout Star Wars fandom. And one particular meme that's making the rounds that, Jim, you introduced to me. Why don't you describe it here? Because this is one that really kind of blew my mind, and I thought, wow, the possibilities on this could be pretty exciting.
The meme comes via a post to the Rebel Force Radio Facebook page from loyal RFR listener Wes Miller, who asks, would this change the way you view the sequel trilogy? The first thing you see in the meme is a photo of Luke, and he's that disheveled, beaten down husk of a man that he is there, and he's on Ahch-To, and he's looking weathered and beaten with the long stringy hair and the unkempt beard, and it says Luke. Then the next picture was, and you see Luke as he's returned to battle on Crate, and it says dead is the next picture, and the photo is of the submerged X-Wing on Ahch-To. Next frame, all, and you see Luke there as we see him from the back in The Force Awakens with the cloak on. Next frame, along. And then there's Luke looking freaked out from The Last Jedi. So Luke was dead all along. Luke was dead all along is what the meme says when you put all the pictures together. And with the imagery and with what we know about Luke, and we replay all the events that happened in The Last Jedi, what if that was a vision Rey was having all along? What if that was just a manifestation of the Jedi spirit making an appearance to Rey on Ahch-To? Or what if Ahch-To never happened and it was like a Mortis type situation where she found herself experiencing what she did? And Chewie too.
Or maybe a type of purgatory, limbo.
Well, that's something to think about with Luke. Maybe Luke himself is in purgatory.
Yeah.
And he is going through this series of events to finally achieve the next step in Jedi immortality.
Well, I have to tell you, I was so relieved to hear this theory because ever since I saw Episode 8, I have wrestled and wrestled and wrestled with the fact that Chewie ate that porg. And if this is a Mortis type situation, we might be able to erase that wrong and write it. Of course, this is a very interesting. This is being dubbed the Sixth Sense theory of Episode 8. If you've seen the Sixth Sense movie, no spoilers on that. You'll know what we're talking about. But this idea that Luke's limitations that seem very self-imposed in Episode 8 are a result of him actually being either himself being limited because he is a spirit, perhaps like Bill says, in purgatory, or perhaps in the consciousness of Rey. And it's actually not Luke at all. It is an impression or a manifestation of Luke based on what she is imagining. That's interesting. I mean, but what this points to, guys, is fan expectation, not all fans, of course, but fan expectation that JJ is going to come in and do something radical to not necessarily erase, but mitigate the damage potentially or arguably done to Luke Skywalker's character in Episode 8. This would be kind of a total nuclear option if, in a sense, you relegated the whole film to being some sort of illusion or fantasy. Is this at all? Is there any element about this, Bill, that is feasible?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been thinking of this, but there are some things I like about the idea because, I think if you're going to do something like this, you can. This doesn't throw away everything from Last Jedi. It uses it. And that's really, in storytelling, the best type of shocker reveal. That's why The Sixth Sense was so good, because when you find out at the end what's really going on, it makes you go back and reevaluate everything that you've seen. The worst kind of shock endings don't do that. The worst kind of shock endings tend to come out of nowhere, and they kind of cancel out everything that you've seen. So, and those type of viewing experiences are very frustrating. I mean, they actually drive me crazy when I see it. Frustrating is an understatement. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea of something like that, provided they can use the material that we've been given in a kind of organic way. So it does make you kind of look back at Last Jedi and reevaluate what you saw. I mean, they could do that.
Yeah, so as long as it doesn't render the film pointless, right? Or like, well, you didn't really need to have that. There has to be some purpose to it. Jim, what was it about this particular idea that really scratched your itch? Because it seemed like this one really made an impression on you.
Yeah, well, it instantly made me look back at Episode 8 and try to evaluate whether or not this premise could actually be feasible. Can it be possible? And it can be. I really think it can be. It made me consider how this would set up Episode 9 if it were a premise that was actually something in play. Luke was dead all along. So Rey was just experiencing, again, like I said, a vision of Mortis-like proportions. And it would explain a lot. It would explain a lot about the differences between Luke Skywalker and Jake Skywalker, if you will. It would be easy to put all the hang-ups you have about the way Luke's character has evolved. You could put it all aside. But then, on the other side of the coin, it makes me say, well, what about Luke? How did he die? What's the story? Why we need that? And that's so much stuff happening off screen. That's something the sequel trilogy's been kind of suffering with, is a lot of off screen stuff happening. Kylo's fall to the dark side, Luke and Kylo's relationship disintegrating. All we have is that one night when he decided to go in there and seek justice by executing Ben Solo. Based on the vision, he said he looked inside Kylo's mind and saw darkness. That's all so vague.
Yeah.
We need something to hang our hats on here. And if Luke is then dead, then how did he die? We need that story. And it couldn't be he just crashed upon arrival on Ahch-To and submerged his X-Wing and died in that crash. I mean, that can't be it. Yes, those things happen. But, we want to know how he got there.
It's almost like, slipping on a banana peel.
Yeah, right.
Like,
after
not
all
a way for
these
Luke
characters,
to,
it has to be something big. This is the guy who took out the Death Star.
I've been sitting on this story here. This is from Cinema Blend. This goes back a little ways, about around the holidays times, and this is some rumors here, guys, and this is actually reminds me of some of the rumors that we were hearing before the release of The Last Jedi. And this talks about a ridiculously powerful Luke. I remember hearing rumors about, Luke he's gonna fly the Falcon, but with his mind, man.
I love that.
I love that too. I thought that was really cool. So according to Cinema Blend here, that Luke is going to be ridiculously powerful. And one of the rumors is that he is going to bring down a Star Destroyer.
We've been hearing
according
that
to the rumor.
That goes back.
That does go back. I think that we were hearing about that in the lead up to Episode 8. So this super powerful Luke, who had the ability to force project, casting that image across the galaxy to confront his nephew and provide the spark and the distraction that the Resistance need, was a display of ability and power unlike any we had ever seen before. So they're saying, look, there's a precedent for Luke being uber powerful. When I hear or think of the idea of a Jedi pulling down a Star Destroyer out of space using the Force, I immediately think of, the Force Unleashed. Yeah. That's the kind of, over-the-top superhero powers that they were given. And here's another one. Now, they talk about Luke's death only leaves a couple of possibilities for how he might actually come back. One is Luke isn't dead or is brought back to life, or we will see flashbacks of Luke doing this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So either he's not dead, he's brought back to life, or this is all going to happen in flashbacks. Now, there's a wild card out there that says, well, what if he does this kind of stuff as a Force ghost? And I was going to say that we don't really have anything that leads us to believe that a Force ghost can have that sort of power. However, in the Force, in The Last Jedi, we see Yoda interacting with the real world as a spirit.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
You know, okay, Obi-Wan says, if you strike me down, I'll become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. But do we ever really see any evidence of that?
Well, he is able to communicate with Luke from the beyond instantly upon being struck down. So he has this omnipresent sort of vibe, which I would consider to be quite powerful.
Okay.
Omnipresent. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, that's a huge power. I mean, that's an enormous power. But we don't see, when I think of power, all right, and maybe this is my own limited view of it, I think of my ability to influence the corporeal world around me. That's what I think about power. If I have some sort of spiritual power, but I can't necessarily influence to any great degree the events or the circumstances in the corporeal world, how powerful is that? I'm sitting on a log having a conversation, but I don't know if I would consider that, super powerful or being able to, say, run, Luke, run. I mean...
But isn't that the idea? Is that his influence on Luke is what ultimately is the power?
He's able to manifest his knowledge and his connection to the Force through Luke, the offspring of the Chosen One. So I think that's a much more powerful use of his skills than just being the weird old hermit that's hanging around, outside the family homestead. He's now able to really use Luke as a vessel to follow through on the mission that he and Yoda set out upon 2 decades prior.
I've always thought about that question, though, if that is what was intended by that line, because I'm like you. I tend to think like, more power than I can imagine would be like just blowing stuff up. Like,
yeah, right.
you struck me down. I'm going to blow this Death Star to smithereens now. Can you imagine if he came back and was doing stuff like that?
But see,
I mean, that Vader would have been impressed with that. But it's a much more subtle. I guess it's a much more subtle idea, right? But
I think the thing that the Emperor and Vader / Anakin were both chasing was immortality and the ability to prevent others from dying. That seems like that was their big goal as dark side practitioners. That was their end game. And it seemed like Obi-Wan had it figured out already. And by having that ability to cheat death, to be able to get struck down and just disappear and become this omnipresent influence on the most powerful light side user in the galaxy, Luke Skywalker, I think makes Obi-Wan extremely powerful, especially in the eyes of someone like Darth Vader, who's chasing that. That's the thing he's after, is that ability to cheat death.
It is a type of divine intervention. But now, this may be obvious, but I didn't pick this up until way later. Like the fact... And I mean, it's got to be intentional. The fact that it is Obi-Wan after death is a disembodied voice, and then he's kind of a very vague image, and then he becomes, old guy sitting on the log at the end. It's a gradual. He's obviously getting more powerful in a way in the afterlife, right? I mean, isn't that the intent of how he's presented as a ghostly figure? I mean, because when he first appears to Luke, you can barely see him. I mean,
right. We've talked about this where there is an evolution. Now, you could of course have it correlate to the technology that was being advanced throughout the making of the films, that they were able to sort of create this ghost-like, apparition of an actor in a more realistic way. But you could also look at canonically and say that as either Obi-Wan's understanding of the Force progresses, or Luke's understanding of the Force progresses, whichever you want to take, his ability to see Obi-Wan and communicate with Obi-Wan increases. So you go from, as you say, a disembodied voice in A New Hope all the way to, really just sort of a blue version of Alec Guinness in Return of the Jedi. And the in-between stage is that very kind of ghostly apparition there on Hoth, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, the intent had to be there because, well, I don't know if this necessarily means that, but Alec Guinness was physically on the set acting with Luke. I wasn't, or acting with Mark Hamill. Which I wasn't even sure about until the Rinsler book came out. And there's pictures in there of Alec Guinness with Mark Hamill performing those scenes. So,
so those weren't just some pickup shots that they did.
No, yeah, he was there, and I guess the blue was added to him, as opposed to Hamill sitting there acting with nothing, which he was very much used to doing.
Yes, well, I mean, but look at the difference in the way they portray Force Ghost Obi-Wan on Hoth versus how they portray him there on Dagobah in the same movie. I mean, there's definitely Luke is, you think about, okay, let's look at Luke's condition there on Hoth. He's physically beaten, he's mentally exhausted, he's freezing to death. And his perception, his ability to perceive Obi-Wan is kind of like when you're trying to tune in a TV station. Kids these days, they don't know what that's like. But, a UHF station, you're trying to tune that dial in, and it's not quite there. It's very, very fuzzy. Then when you see him, and he's obviously very, very fresh in his training of the Force, he turns around, he sees Obi-Wan, and you can practically reach out and touch him.
Oh well,
likewise,
okay. So
you're the Jedi.
You're saying that it's just as dependent upon Luke as it is Obi-Wan, right?
I'm saying that it I don't know, but it definitely seems as though, as you say, Bill, that there was intent there because the technology existed, obviously, or they wouldn't have been able to make him look so, real, for lack of a better term, on Dagobah, as they did in Hoth. So you get the sense that very, very tired, beaten Luke can just barely perceive Obi-Wan at that point.
George Lucas was toying around with the idea of bringing people back to life through the Force when he was writing Return of the Jedi. In the revised rough draft, I'm looking at Star Wars, the annotated screenplays, the book. Mm-hmm. In the revised rough draft, Luke has been taken prisoner and is being taken to the Emperor. He's inside the Imperial shuttle, sitting in a small metallic cell. He's begging Ben to help him face his father. Ben! Begging Ben to help him face his father, saying he might be able to resist the dark side. Yoda's image appears for the first time in this draft. He tells Luke that Ben can no longer help him. His power to stay in the nether world has been spent, and he will soon be one with the Force, his identity lost forever. Only Luke can draw him back to the material world. But Luke is unsure of himself, and his anger toward Ben for not telling him that Vader is his father could prevent him from coming back to the real world. So Luke's anger is blocking Ben to return back in the real world, bringing him back to life. Then Yoda tells Luke he has a twin sister, and she's the only hope left. And then when does Ben pop back in here? Again, with the annotated draft, you're getting an annotated version of the draft. So they skip around a lot. But they do mention later that Ben had returned. And he goes to confront the Emperor in the Emperor's throne room. The Emperor... he suddenly becomes aware of a presence behind him. He looks back and sees Ben in the flesh. Ben explains that he's come back to help Luke destroy the Emperor and his father. Yoda appears. While Ben will be at his side, Yoda will also be able to help from the netherworld.
So Ben is crossing back over into the land of the living. Yoda stays in spirit world to assist.
And then you have a quote from George Lucas in this book explaining why he decided that Yoda and Ben couldn't come back and help Luke at that moment. Even though at some point Yoda and Ben interfered, I eventually decided they couldn't connect physically with what Luke was doing. I felt that one of the major issues in the third film is that Luke is finally on his own, and he has to fight Vader and the Emperor by himself. If you get the sense Yoda or Ben is there to help him or to somehow influence him, it diminishes the power of the scene. So George had thought it out, and so it goes beyond, like, what can a Jedi do or what they can't do. I mean, to George, it's total blue skies, and the ceiling is infinite. So if he wants Yoda and Ben to come back, they'll come back. But he realized that for the best part of the story about Luke Skywalker, he has to, complete that hero's journey on his own. And with Ben and Yoda there to help him, it diminishes his growth as a character. And that's what we all really were banking on all along when we saw the original trilogy, was Luke succeeding. That has more to do with anything about Star Wars as far as I'm concerned. It has more to do with the character than the mythology when you think about the original trilogy. It all comes down to Luke. You want Luke to succeed. You want Luke to succeed, save all of his friends, save the galaxy, and defeat the bad guys. That's really the bottom line of the entire original trilogy.
Yeah, well, I mean, if this is the end of the Skywalker saga, that's, it either, I think we've talked about this before. Jim, you brought it up. If this is the end of the Skywalker saga, then Rey, in some sense, really does need to be a Skywalker, because they're building this up to really be, the climax for her character. So if Luke's already gone, they're not going to get that much out of Leia. I mean, God bless him. I don't care what Todd Fisher says. I mean, how much can you possibly get? I mean, she was alive for the making of the last two movies, and you got a little bit more than maybe 10 minutes total worth of footage of her in the whole movie. So if this is really the end of the Skywalker saga, how much Skywalker can there be in it at this point?
Right.
I mean, although we are forgetting Skywalker Solo with Kylo Ren. But, Bill, I want to ask you a question.
And you're also forgetting...
Mm-hmm.
You're forgetting Anakin Skywalker.
Oh, well...
I mean, shouldn't it all be tied up if it really is the Skywalker saga?
Well, possibly. Before we get to that, because there is a theory about Anakin Skywalker, and this is a wild ride. Before we get into that, Bill, I wanted to ask you, of the two possibilities, either Luke not actually being dead or Luke coming back sort of Gandalf the white style, or just seeing Luke more in his prime via some sort of force-back or flashback. Which of those two ideas do you like the most? And would you like to see thrown in there?
I'll tell you when I see it. How about that? I never, it's hard for me to pick one or the other, dismiss an idea, because some of these ideas sound crazy, and then you get enough creative integrity behind it, and it comes off really nicely. There's been a lot of talk about flashbacks and the use of that, and obviously not a big not unprecedented now because we had some in Last Jedi, but obviously not something a device that's been used much in the Star Wars films. With as much talk as there's been about use of flashback, it seems to me that if they were really going to embrace that they would go a little bigger with it, a la like Godfather 2. I mean, can you imagine them spending that much time in the past? It could be interesting. I don't know if I'm totally confident of that approach, but I can imagine that being interesting. It certainly would be different.
Where a third or half of the movie could be told in flashback.
Right.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, if it's 2.5 hour movie, I mean, if it's something that is tying in really organically with the the so-called present day story, the main storyline, it could be something really cool. I don't know that they would go that far.
Yeah. Well, Cinema Blend, what seems to be the impetus behind this whole story is they're saying, look, we've got a rumor about Episode 9 and a Luke Skywalker bringing down a Star Destroyer with the Force. So is this a flashback of Luke? Is this a Luke who has risen from the dead? What kind of Luke is this? They seem pretty confident that this is a scene that is likely to happen, or for all we know, it's something that is they've seen nothing more than a concept sketch of it, or maybe it was something that was a concept idea for Episode 7 or Episode 8.
Just logically, I'm not seeing how it would be a flashback necessarily. What would it be flashing back to?
The Battle of Jakku.
The Empire would be.
Well, yeah, Battle of Jakku. They're throwing that out there.
Yeah, but is that established as being post Endor? Battle of Jakku? It is?
It is.
Oh,
yep.
Okay. So there's.
And then you got Rey living or scavenging in that particular Star Destroyer. So it's like, okay, so Luke was the one that brought down the Star Destroyer that Rey goes in,
Yeah, well, that would add some nice resonance to that,
If Luke is able to have this kind of ability, though, let's say that this is Force Ghost power. If they're able to have that kind of impact beyond the grave, does it minimize their death? Does it make it like, well, who cares whether they're dead or alive? They have the same, ability to affect change, in the universe, whether they're dead or they're alive. Who cares?
Yeah, it does minimize the death.
Well, it depends on how it's all executed within the plot.
Yeah. But I mean, I could see that it would. But what is the power? So, but are you saying that Jedi power that something a Jedi with that much power that would take place after he dies, or is he already that powerful?
Well,
is that specifically a power that's given to him in the post life, so to speak?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, because now we're talking about degrees of. I mean, we go from degrees of Force ability as a living person versus Force abilities and degrees of Force abilities once you cross over to the other side. So if you have a really, really powerful, I once heard. It's funny. I once heard somebody who claims to be a medium that speak to spirits and see spirits. They said, well, if you were an a-hole in life, guess what? Death doesn't change that. You're an a-hole in death too. So that explains a lot of the ghosts and and hauntings and things. But here's the question: so if you're as powerful as Luke Skywalker is, or Anakin Skywalker in life, in death, you are also really, really powerful. So to your point, Bill, about are we talking about this is some sort of power that they get because as a result of them crossing over? I don't know. I would assume that you're super powerful, and then you are free of the what's the expression? The surly bonds of the earth.
Yeah.
That you would your powers would be perhaps even magnified more because you were no longer encumbered by the physical limitations.
And then you're a weapon of war. The whole idea is just funky to me. I don't even know what to make of it because whenever you take characters and make them that powerful, they become very hard to relate to. There was that character in Watchmen, Dr. Manhattan. He's a big blue guy, and he was able to do anything. Now, he was a man at one time, and then he became this all-powerful being. And he's just too weird. He can't relate to anybody because he's on another plane of existence entirely.
But I mean, that's the essence of his character too. Is he struggles?
He's a walking dilemma. Yeah, and of course he's used in war and stuff, and it's.
Yeah, well,
it's very subversive, but he's not a character. I mean, that is kind of the idea behind him is that his humanity is just obliterated. He's become something that people don't even relate to or recognize, and I think that you always run into that. I mean, so Luke obtaining that kind of power and death, even if he's always had that power, but for him to be taken down Star Destroyers after he dies does present the question of why would he be, fighting this battle? I mean, wouldn't he be interested in more spiritual things at that point?
Right. It would have to be a flashback.
Doesn't seem consistent with a Force character.
It would have to be a flashback if that were to exist in the film. I mean, it just doesn't. It doesn't jive. It doesn't even jive with the Luke that's alive in Episode 8.
Yeah.
No.
If he is alive.
Yeah. All right, Bill, are you ready for your mind to be blown?
Blow my mind.
All right, this is big. So you have to strap in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Strap in for this one. Okay, this comes by way of Reddit, so it's got to be have some amount of truth in it, right? So this is Reddit, there's people on there that claim to be part of the production, claim to be part of the creative team, or are in the know for what's going on with all kinds of things. Star Wars is no different. So this is someone anonymous, of course, posted this sort of summary capsule of Episode 9. Right? Here we go. And I'm going to clean this up because there's some foul language in here. The movie itself is rather effing dull until the ending. The Resistance needs help, have to appeal to a crime syndicate. Of course, the leader of the syndicate is Lando. Lando unites all the outlaws against the First Order, and of course, they win. Kylo and Rey continue their weird Skype sessions and are almost different factions from the larger war. But ultimately, there is a big showdown at the end of the movie between them. Kylo is beating the F out of Rey. Rey appeals to his emotions, catches him slipping, literally, and gains the upper hand. He surrenders. She can end him, but doesn't. Their environment fades away, and they find themselves in another realm. The ghosts of Yoda and Obi-Wan are waiting for them. Obi-Wan explains that they have overcome their spiritual battle and become one with the Force. Where Kylo Ren and Rey once stood, Anakin effing Skywalker is now. So, where Kylo Ren and Rey stand, they are replaced by Anakin Skywalker. Mm-hmm. Yoda congratulates Anakin on finding balance and light within himself, and Obi-Wan says someone is waiting to see them. They all fade away and reappear on Endor and look on fondly as the rebels celebrate on Endor, and Luke smiles at the three.
Bill's mind is blown. It's just blown.
Crazy.
I got to mop up.
Yeah, there you go. So what they're essentially saying is that what we see play out in the sequel trilogy is Anakin Skywalker working out his own demons
He's earning his redemption in the afterlife.
Earning his redemption in the afterlife, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. That is a little. That's a bit much, isn't it?
What are you saying?
That's almost too out there. I mean, that's like the snow globe ending of St. Elsewhere. It's like it all was happening in somebody else's mind the entire time.
God, is that how they ended St. Elsewhere?
So, yeah, one of the doctors had this autistic boy who would appear from time to time in the show, and he really did not have any social skills, hardly at all. It was very, he would say, "Tommy, hungry. Tommy, want to go to bed." That was about all he could do. And anyway, at the end of the show, there's this scene where his dad, who is the head doctor at this hospital, comes walking in wearing a hard hat, like he just got off of a construction job. It's like, wait, what's going on here? And the boy is on the floor with a snow globe, and he says, God, I don't know what to do. All he does is sit here and look at this snow globe, and they zoom in on the snow globe, and the hospital's in it. So
the whole damn show was a kid's imagination?
That was the end of the show.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wow. Well, right. This is that.
It's in that realm. Yeah.
Well, yeah. That's the level of misdirection we're dealing with here. If that were actually to be true, and I know some people who really want it to be true because they're so desperate to see anything that just negates what happened in episode 8. Anything to make it.
Well, the one thing I will say that is kind of interesting about it. Now, I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to see that type of ending. Okay, but the thing about Darth Vader's story that I always found so fascinating is that when we talk about, we always say, "Oh, well, he was redeemed," but of course, Darth Vader as a character had done a lot of really, really horrible things. So the idea of redemption and forgiveness is it's very complicated with him because but we don't really have to deal with it too much because he dies. So it's like, yes, whatever forgiveness, whatever kind of redemption he's going to receive, it's really in somebody else's hands. It's going to happen in the afterlife.
Well, he was directly responsible for the assassination of the most hated evil man in the universe, the leader of the Galactic Republic, a republic that had oppressed thousands and thousands of star systems.
Well, no, that was a good act, but I don't know that it cancels out the other things he did. It's just, I mean, he did that's the whole problem. I mean, he did a lot of really awful things, and if he had lived, I mean, what is the idea that we're just going to let him go unpunished for the things that he did?
Well, that's a good point, Bill. I mean, take a look at Hitler.
It's
right?
a little more existential. Yeah.
I mean, let's say that that Rommel or one of Hitler's top henchmen would have assassinated the Fuhrer there at the end. Are we going to just all of a sudden say, okay, well, you're a good dude, and you obviously saw the light, so you're going to be, statues erected in your honor? And
No. Well, I don't know if celebrated is exactly the way you should go about it, but I'd say I'm good with him after that, but keep an eye on him.
Well, and he doesn't get punished for the.
No, you're right about that. You can't. One good deed does not erase someone's past criminal or hatred.
Yeah, and I mean, it could get into really deep philosophical things. I mean, can you be forgiven? I mean, who are we to forgive him for, say, killing the younglings? Okay, I mean, the victims of that crime were the younglings. So, I mean, who are we to say that, oh, yes, we forgive you for that? I mean, really, the only people capable of truly forgiving him would be his victims. But since they're dead, that's impossible. So, I mean, the idea at the end of Jedi, it's suggested that he did reach some kind of redemption because we see him standing there smiling with Yoda and Ben. But it's kind of like how that took place is really it's in another realm of existence. So, I mean, I guess I kind of like the idea of maybe exploring that a little bit more, but I wouldn't want to see it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that part of it I find interesting, but I wouldn't want to see this literally happen. No.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that the notion that there was some sort of penance, there was some sort of quest or task or whatever you want to say for Anakin to earn his way back into the good graces of the order of things is great idea. But boy, there's a difference between thinking about it and seeing it play out in a film.
All right, let's talk about George Lucas and his direction for the sequel trilogy and where he wanted that to go. Things that we heard about the sequel trilogy back in the days when George still owned Star Wars and Lucasfilm was still under his direction, there was always those whispers about the sequel trilogy. It would be dealing with a very gray area where, black isn't necessarily black and white isn't necessarily white, and it was hard to really determine what good and bad actually was. And there was the author, Dale Pollock, who wrote the autobiography of George Lucas called Skywalking. He claims to have seen an early outline or a mini treatment for George's idea of the sequel trilogy. And he also reiterated it was, things were happening in kind of that middle area where it was difficult to tell right from wrong. Then George revealed in this book from James Cameron that came out last year, James Cameron's Story of Science Fiction, George said the next 3 Star Wars films were going to get into a microbiotic world. There's this world of creatures that operate different than we do. I call them the Wills. And the Wills are the ones who actually control the universe. They feed off the Force. So that was kind of a direction in which he was thinking about delving into. Lucas says the midi-chlorians were key to his vision for the Force. Back in the day, this is George, I used to say ultimately what this means is we are just cars, vehicles for the Wills to travel around in. We're vessels for them, and the conduit is the midi-chlorians. The midi-chlorians are the ones that communicate with the Wills. The Wills, in a general sense, they are the Force. All the way back to with the Force and the Jedi and everything, the whole concept of how things happen was laid out completely from the beginning to the end. But I never got to finish. I never got to tell people about it. Well, okay. That's you get, $4.5 billion will put an end to your story pretty quickly, pal. But, and that is unfortunate because I do think that George got fired from Star Wars essentially once Disney took over, and they evaluated his contributions and said, no, this doesn't work. We're going in a different direction. And I think J.J. Abrams is the guy who really sort of forced that issue. And, they said, well, how do we deal with George? I don't know. I'm just going to keep working on this thing, and we'll send him the script when we're done. So George is like, well, I'm looking forward to collaborating with JJ. And, and then the FedEx guy shows up, and it's a full script with a Post-it note on it that says, George, what do you think?
Yeah.
What do I think? Well, I think this is crap.
Well, I mean, didn't we actually see photos or off photo of George and JJ hanging in a coffee shop at one point after JJ was named the director?
No, I think that's an older photo, though.
Oh, is that what it is?
I think that was when George was still running the company and stuff.
Oh, okay.
There were situations where the two of them were together many times. There was always kind of like a general appreciation for each other, obviously.
Well, I mean, he was a good. He was a protege of Steven Spielberg,
exactly, right?
George's bestie, so got that going on.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, we have a lot of time to continue reviewing these rumors and discussing what types of methods are available to J.J. Abrams to kind of satisfy all fans or most fans in the Star Wars universe. So you can't be too much of an apologist on the one side, and then on the other side, because you're going to disappoint people who were not big fans of what happened in the film, and then you can't go so much the other way and negate it all for those that really did like the film and what it said about these characters. So JJ's got to look. We've all known that he's had a big job ahead of him, and we'll find out. But for now, let's check in with Star Wars in pop culture.
Rebel Force Radio.
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody!
All right, so now this is a show that I don't watch. I'm not really into the drams.
No.
And boy, as soon as I have the people I go to lunch with talking about their programs that they watched the night before, and they getting all teary and start talking, I'm like, well, that's a show I'm never going to watch. I'm not and one of those such shows is This Is Us.
This Is Us. Hey, listen, last time we played clips from This Is Us, we got a bunch of mail say, don't ever play clips from This Is Us. I mean, really, people start throwing down. And I'm like, but wait a second, it's Star Wars in pop culture. We are just taking note of the fact that Star Wars references are everywhere, even in a crap show like This Is Us. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, we're not playing clips of This Is Us because we think This Is Us is a good show. We're playing clips from This Is Us because they're talking about Star Wars. Hey, Star Wars is everywhere, and we need to celebrate it when it even infiltrates places we think suck, like This Is Us. All right, This Is Us. I mean, but This Is Us is really that kind of show. It's real melodramatic, tearjerker, network TV drama, People we're supposed to relate to, but at the end of the day, we don't relate with these people at all, except when it comes to vintage Star Wars action figures. And that came up in a recent episode of This Is Us. NBC, Tuesday nights, 9 p.m., 8 Central. This Is Us had an episode called The Last 7 Weeks, featuring the drama as Kate and Toby get ready for the baby.
Oh, so, not Kate and Toby.
Kate and Toby, yeah, they get 7 weeks till baby shows up. So they are looking at the space they have in their homestead, and they're realizing that it's time to turn their, kind of fun junk room into a nursery. So they start evaluating the square footage in their place, and Toby realizes that this shit's getting real.
So I was thinking, we're just using this room to store all of our junk, I think it's time that we turn this room into a nursery.
I am so on board.
Yeah?
Yeah, I was just waiting because you were hesitant.
Yeah. So you need to sell all your toys.
Yep. Sell all your toys.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And you heard Toby. He was just like, oh. But, reality is smacking Toby hard upside the head. So they, box it all up. And Kate goes to the college campus and has a little rummage sale. And then Toby comes home from work.
Oh, no. I know it's coming.
Well, are we rich?
These kids at my college, they went crazy for our stuff.
Yeah, well, we're so old to them, our stuff is considered vintage. Where's the box that I tucked under the counter?
I don't know. I think I sold it.
No, it was marked. DNS.
Yeah, it was donations. I sold it. One less trip to the Goodwill.
No, that DNS does not stand for donations. It stands for do not sell. That box was home to my original complete set of 1977 Star Wars action figures.
I'm sorry. It was an accident,
You should have asked. You should have asked.
Babe, Come on, they're just toys.
Whoa. Whoa. They are not just toys. They are action figures. First of all, action figures that have traveled with me from house to house after my parents got divorced, into my college dorm room, through 6 LA apartments, so that someday I could hand them down to my kid. But now...
Toe.
Done.
Oh.
Done. And so,
wow.
Yeah, you know. Now, there's a few things I'd like to point out. Devotion to accuracy department. Toby claimed that those were his original 1977 Star Wars action figures.
Yes.
Well, anyone who is actually collecting action figures in 1977 realized that we went that whole summer into the fall, into the Christmas season with no Star Wars action figures.
Yep.
The earliest we could get our hands on Star Wars action figures was spring 1978. So, Toby, I already question your authenticity. You know, but no, he did like 6 LA apartments, wanted to pass it down to Toby Jr., et cetera, et cetera. Okay, been there, done that. So I understand Toby's angst and his dedication to vintage Star Wars action figures, and we salute Toby here. Even though he's on the suck-ass show, This Is Us. NBC.
How old is Toby? Is he old enough to have those figures?
That's a good question.
Yeah, he's having a kid a little late in life here.
Hey, guys, I think we just... now, here's the question. Is This Is Us based in, like, the year 2019? Or
Sure it is.
Are you sure? Or is it like a flashback
like
to the
Mad
90s? Like, no, to the 90s.
Oh,
okay?
to the 90s. I don't think so. I think it takes place in modern present day.
Wow, and he's just having kids now.
Yeah.
And those were his original 1977 action figures.
Yeah.
So if you figure at the very least, Toby was 3 years old in 1977. That would still make him 45 years old and kind of, you know, well, I mean, that's Toby, though. Maybe Kate is like 20 years younger than him.
You know, I see a thing in a lot of movies and TV shows, too, where there's like a frame of reference for nostalgia that is 70s, early 80s and stuff. And it's like, sometimes I don't know where it's coming from because that's 40 years ago at this point. So... You know, I don't know. I don't see people in their 30s being nostalgic about those eras. Maybe there's such good eras that everybody feels the warm fuzzies. I don't know.
Well, the guy, you know, to Toby's credit, he didn't say I've had those action figures since 1977. He said those are my original 1977 action figures.
Oh, yeah. This is out. There you go.
You know, obviously the frame of reference for him was incorrect. We've pointed out that flaw, that Star Wars action figures weren't commercially available until spring 1978 at the earliest. And you were lucky to find them if you could, Toby. So they go to the frat house and they confront the kid who bought them for, you know, pennies. He bought these action figures, and the kid won't sell them back. He's a real tool. And so Kate goes and hits the eBay and purchases replacement 1977 Star Wars action figures for old Toby. And let's hear how Toby responds to that.
Wait, you can tell these aren't yours from over there?
Yeah, a man knows his Chewbacca.
There you go. So,
oh, man.
Toby wasn't buying any of that.
Oh, this is like when you try to, you know, in the old sitcoms, when, you know, the pet dies and they try to, or the goldfish dies, right? And they try to get another one to look just like it. You know it's not yours.
That's not Princess Fluffy.
yeah, right.
How do you know, kid? So it's a cat, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So Toby can see it from a mile away.
A man knows his Chewbacca.
A mile away. Wow. But to the credit of the producers of This Is Us, they actually did have Kenner vintage action figures, legitimate action. I remember we talked to Topher Grace about all things Star Wars a few years ago, and he lamented the fact that they made him stand there in front of the cameras on that 70s show holding up a 1995 Darth Vader action figure. He called them out on it, and they said, "Shut up, kid. Read your lines."
That's exactly right. That is so true. That's what happened. Because we wondered about that. Now the real mystery is the Goldbergs. You know, when Adam Goldberg, who's a big Star Wars fan, he knows vintage from postmodern. Yet on that show, they tend to. I think there was an episode where they were dealing with Adam's collection, and they had some of the postmodern figures thrown in there. You know, you can't do that.
You can't do that. We're going to see right through that stuff. And it doesn't matter how sappy you're going to make the ending of the Goldbergs. That's when I realized my parents are real people.
You know, I heard you
really love me. And
I heard you talking about that. I thought that whole little postscript they always do in those episodes was supposed to be a joke. I thought they're making fun of the feel-good endings, you know?
Oh, no.
Because they're so ridiculous.
Well, apparently,
I like
Wendy
the
is
show.
brought to
I don't mean
tears
to
every week by it, right?
I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that.
Han Solo is from Star Wars, not Star Trek. And it's Trek, by the way, not Trek.
A man knows his Chewbacca.
Rebel Force Radio.